Forgot my tripod, so I'll try to shoot this video without it today. I hear a lot recently about how some people think that you have to have non-farm income or non-ranch income to make a living ranching. And I honestly just don't think that's true. And then I also hear this whole thing where, why did the ag community and farmers and everything, why'd they vote for who they voted for if they want subsidies? And I'm like, I don't know about you. Like, subsidies are fine and everything. And I know some people, I don't know if I would even say they're fine. I mean, at the end of the day, there's probably a time when they're necessary, but I'd say the majority of people want, especially in the rural area, want a better economy more than they want subsidies. And if you're relying that heavily on subsidies to stay afloat, like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if you should be in business if that's the only thing keeping you afloat. Like, I know that might take some people off, but I think it's just honest to God truth, because truth is there's people making money without subsidies. There's people making money ranching without subsidies. There's people making money farming without subsidies. And you can say, oh, those are just the people that had handouts from their parents or their grandparents. And, maybe that's true for some of them. But at the end of the day, there are people who have P&Ls that make money every single year. That's the truth. And you say, how does somebody like me know that? Well, I was a commodity broker for a little over 2 years. So I helped people with risk management, people who may have been struggling with their P&Ls that were required to utilize futures and options from the bank. The bank made them, or LRP because the bank made them because they were risky customers. Not only that, I now have been an ag lender for getting close to 2 years, and I actually get to see people's P&Ls. I actually get to see finances from a lot of ranchers. And not only that, I grew up in the space. I grew up on a ranch. I'm feeding out these 3 steers this year for the first time. It's a learning experience in itself. But I'm doing it by tracking all the costs and utilizing strategies that are proven by people who I've spoken with, people I've grown up with, strategies I've learned along the way throughout both careers. And, at the end of the day, the people that are sitting there complaining that you need to have non-farm income to make it work, I mean, I'd say maybe in your situation, but why are you in that situation? Are you overspending? Do you have too fancy of a tractor? Do you have, too fancy of what? Did you get yourself in too much debt early on? Like, what is the deal? Like, there's a reason you're not making it work. Are you tracking all your costs heavily? And I know a lot of people think they know what their bottom line is, but then there's a lot of people who don't. I learned that as a commodity broker, and I learned that as an ag lender. There's so many people that don't truly know where they're at. And just because you have a balance sheet with a bunch of assets on it, even more than your liabilities, doesn't really necessarily mean you're making money, okay? Balance sheet just means you have all this stuff and you don't owe as much stuff. I mean, or you could owe too much stuff. Who knows? You're probably not getting too much money from a bank if that's the case. And that doesn't even mean you need to borrow money from a bank. I don't think people always have to borrow a lot of money. Like, yes, if you're going to, rent out a bunch of ground as a farmer, or buy a bunch of cattle right off the get-go, or even if you're feeding cattle and, you have to buy a bunch of calves right now, the cost is really high. Maybe you need an operating line. But the truth is, if you are just getting started out, why don't you do what I'm doing right here and just start with three head. And you ask, where do you get the other stuff? Yes, I utilize some of the resources from my family's operation. I understand not everybody has that chance. Not everybody has that. But things that I bought, Facebook Marketplace, I look for cheaper alternatives. I'm not borrowing money to do it. Working with an older rancher, I know there's a lot of people out there. People don't believe it, but there's a lot of people out there, a lot of older ranchers who want to pass on their knowledge. And maybe they don't have a kid, maybe they don't have somebody that they can pass that on to. Just go ask them if you can learn, and don't expect anything out of it but other than education. Literally just go and ask if you can, if they will show you a piece of their operation. So if you want to finish out steers and sell beef direct to consumer, if you want to learn how to farm, if you want to learn how to finish out, cattle in a feedlot and play the margin game, if you want to do cow calf, whatever you want to learn, go find a rancher, go find somebody who does that, and then just go ask them if you can learn. And that doesn't mean you have to expect them to give you, a few steers or a few cows to calve out, or even some land or anything like that. You don't ask for that stuff. You just ask to learn. And, maybe they do help you out with that someday, at some point. But you don't expect that. You go into it being humble and just wanting to learn, because that education is so much more valuable than you realize. There's people that are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a college education. Don't get me wrong, I did it. But if you're willing to do that for that education that sometimes is subpar, I believe, especially those people that go into college and, screw off the whole time, like you're not getting anything out of it. If you're willing to pay for education like that, why don't you just go get some free education? It just costs you time, and time is valuable. I get it. But do you want to do this or not? Do you want to do this or not? It's literally comes down to that. Like, don't say it's impossible if you're not willing to do what it takes. That's all I got to say. Do not say it's impossible if you're not willing to do what it takes. If you're not willing, I don't even know what I just said. Do not say it's impossible if you're not willing to do what it takes. Seriously. Have the discipline. Give up, sacrifice time, make sacrifices. Do what you got to do to make it happen. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not cut out for it. That's all there is to it. I'm not even sitting here saying that I'm cut out for it. I'm learning. I'm starting small, starting with 3 head. And I grew up in the industry. Some of you haven't grown up in the industry. I've grown up in the industry. I've worked as a commodity broker for 2 years. I've worked almost 2 years as an egg lender. I do have that non-farm income. But everything I'm doing, I want it to be self-sustaining, so that my farm P&L is completely separate from any other income. And then I'm going to prove that you can do it as a family rancher. Family ranchers can be profitable. And I believe that the industry's dying, but I believe that it doesn't have to. And I believe that we can make a change. And that is exactly why I started the Agri Summit community, is, to help ranchers, help family ranchers succeed, make money, keep more money in their pockets, to help keep these small acreages, these small farms alive, the family operations. We don't need to sell out to all the big corp guys, all those people that think that they're big wigs, but they're just getting money from people like, I don't know, who, big money names. Those people who are spending their money, yeah, they don't count. They're I don't know, they're literally just, what do we call them? What should we call them? We should call them, I don't know, dumb labor. I don't know. They're spending they're spending the big guys' money. They think they're making a lot of progress, but at the end of the day, where does it leave their family? They're slaves to whoever has the money at the end of the day. So I believe in family ranches. I believe it's possible without non-farm income. Now, if you have a spouse and, or even you and your spouse both have non-farm income, and you both do the farming or ranching together, and most of my experience is ranching. And if you do the ranching together, and then you work non-farm income jobs, that's fine. But I want to prove that it's possible to not have to have that supplemental income. And I know there's good years and bad years, but at the end of the day, you should be able to outweigh that with risk management strategies. Your farm P&L should be self-sustaining. I believe that. And that is exactly why I'm, sharing this on YouTube. It's exactly why I started the Agri Summit community. If you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the description. Check it out. It is for people who believe in believe in family ranches. And I'm rambling, so I better cut this thing off. But you can build a profitable family ranch. So I figured I'd throw this in there too, since I'm talking about it. But what are some of those things you can do to make sure you're profitable? Well, first of all, tracking all your costs. seems simple, but there's a lot of people who don't do it. Making sure you're tracking all your costs, and not only that, like all of the costs, like everything, like your rent payment, your land payment, your if you use Wi-Fi at your house and you don't want to use farm income, like that's part of your expenses, your personal expenses. If you don't have non-farm income, your farm has to pay for all those personal expenses. So your personal expenses need to go down in that category if you're going to make that work. And there are people who do it. I'm telling you, there are people who do it. I see it on a day-to-day basis. Does anybody out there want to have a little acreage with 5, 10, 15 cows and make a little side income like that? Like, that's possible, to do with a full-time job or something like that. But that shouldn't mean that you have to make so much money that you can lose money with those 15 cows. Like, your farm P&L should be able to make it profitable. And if you have that dream of having that acreage, go ahead and consider giving Agri Summit a try. With the community, there's a lot of people in there. Everybody in there has some sort of experience that they bring to the table, whether that be just a learning experience at this point, or whether that be, years of owning cattle. So if you're interested in that, invest in the education. Everything you put out into the world will come back to you. If you're interested in investing in that type of education, then you can expect good things to come because you've put in the work, and it doesn't just come down to education. You're going to have to take action, imperfect action. I learned that from a mentor one time. Tons of imperfect action creates experiences, learning lessons, and that's where you actually get results. But that being said, if you can gain vast amounts of information with a community of people who are there to support you, ask questions to, now that in itself is worth thousands. And you don't have to pay that. But say goodbye for the steers for today. See you guys in the next one.